this, this actually third or fourth or fifth.
Seventh.
We've been working him hard, meeting with Andrés Di Tella. It's a great honor to have him, and I've thoroughly enjoyed seeing his films and talking with him. I'm Ann Kaplan. I direct the Humanities Institute here, and I'm just going to only trouble you to announce a couple of upcoming events here. On Wednesday, October 17th, James Epstein will talk about scandals of colonial rule in this room at 4 p.m. On October 23rd at 4:30 p.m., you know, these things, we zigzag time, Regina Kunzel will talk about in treatment, mental health, and modern sexuality. And my assistant said I should announce my own lecture, but
you should.
I'm a little shy to invite
you want me to announce it again?
But I'm going to talk on Thursday, October 25th, on my in-progress book, basically on futurist dystopian imaginaries. Okay, and I'm actually going to focus on John Hillcoat's The Road, despite this being in the Oprah Winfrey Book Club. But no, it's a very serious book. So now I'm going to hand over to Paul, and I do want to say this has been a wonderful collaboration with the Latin American and Caribbean Center, and I hope that it's just the beginning of many more.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anne. It's a privilege, actually. Thank you very much. I would like to start briefly thanking, first of all, the Office of the Provost, the Latin American and Caribbean Studies Center, the Humanities Institute, and especially Ann Kaplan and all the staff, Ann Berrios and Olivia Matis, all of them who have been tremendously helpful. Domenica Tafuro in LACS, in Latin American and Caribbean Center, and also the Department of Hispanic Languages and Literature, and the Office of Diversity and Affirmative Action. My name is Paul Figuas. I'm the director of our own program in Latin American and Caribbean Studies, and I'm also a professor in Hispanic Languages and Literature. I'm extremely honored, happy to have here with us to introduce today Andrés Di Tella, Argentinian filmmaker and writer. Andrés studied literature at Oxford, worked as a journalist for various newspapers in Argentina, and produced and directed documentaries for Channel 7, Canal Encuentro in Argentina, PBS in Boston, and Channel 4 in London, England. Andrés has written and directed 8 films since his feature in 1994. His work is intimately related to Argentinian contemporary history, to the large migrations of the 20th century, and to the exploration of subjectivity and private life in the documentary genre. There are some seats here. Family plots, the intersection between private and social issues, the political value of personal experience, and always a critical reflection on the form of the documentary are, I consider, the distinctive traits of his work. Di Tella's feature film, Montoneros, Una Historia, 1994, tells the story of the political violence in Argentina during the late 1970s, taken from the testimonies of survivors of concentration camps. In 1997, he released Prohibido, Forbidden, a documentary on repression and censorship during the Dirty War in Argentina, and also constructed from multiple oral narrations. His next feature was La Televisión y Yo, Television and I, released in 2003, which explores the intimate intersection between the political and the private, as it narrates in the first person the history of Argentinian television and the industrial downfall of the Di Tella family. In 2007, he finished Photographs, a documentary essay on the search of his mother homeland in India. The following year, 2008, he released El País del Diablo, Devil's Land, Devil's Country, a documentary on the campaign of the desert, or the sort of extermination campaign on native populations in Argentina in the 19th century. His new film, released in 2011, Hachazos, Blows of the Axe, is an essay and a biography of Claudio Caldini, a forgotten avant-garde filmmaker from the 1970s in Buenos Aires. We will have the privilege tonight of screening Hachazos, Blows of the Axe, for the very first time in the United States. So tonight at 5:30, all of you are welcome, and that will happen in Melville Library N3060. Andrés Di Tella was the creator and director of a most important Buenos Aires International Festival of Independent Cinema, Bafisi. So he directed it from 1999 to 2000. And since 2002, he's the director of the Documentary Festival of Princeton University, where he was also visiting professor in the year 2005. He has published several essays on the documentary genre and the political culture in Argentina. In 2011, he released his first book, Hachazos, to accompany his film about Caldini. 2 full books have been published on his work. He received the most prestigious Guggenheim Fellowship in 1998, and there have been numerous retrospectives of his work that have been organized in festivals in Spain, in France, in Brazil, and Peru. And the next month, he will be in the Festival di Popoli in Firenze, in Italy, in the 53rd edition of this festival, International Festival of Documentary, which will focus on Di Tella and exhibit for the first time his whole work in Italy, in that very important context of a major international documentary festival. So it's a privilege and a joy, so please join me to give a warm welcome to our distinguished guest, Andrés Di Tella.
Thank you all. I think I'm going to sit here. Today I'm going to talk, hopefully briefly, about some films that I'll be showing just a few minutes of, to illustrate some of the ideas that we discussed with Paul about something that shouldn't be, but is maybe still considered a little unexpected in the documentary. The documentary is often seen as the realm of objectivity, of external society, and less as the world of private life and intimacy. And I will argue that it is precisely in this intimacy, in attaining this intimacy, that we can tell the stories that will reach the audience in a special way and make them think about their own relation to society rather than in a general or generic way. So I would just like to start. Oh, okay. Thank you. Hello?
No, that's for the camera.
Oh, that's it. There's one of the famous early Lumière, the Lumière brothers were the inventors of cinema. There's a famous film called L'Arroseur Arrosé. It's the guy, the gardener who's watering the lawn, gets water on water. So this is what's happening to me here. A documentary. Didn't work, the joke, but so I would just like to start to break the ice with a film that's in a way the classic sort of documentary mode that is now accepted as the classic documentary mode, which is what in the 1960s was called direct cinema. And it was actually came out in the United States, simultaneously in France, although in France it took a slightly different, more reflexive turn, as you might imagine. And this film is called Salesman. Maybe some of you have seen it. It's by the brothers Albert and David Maysles. David later died, and Charlotte Swearin. And it's one of the classics of this school of direct cinema, which claimed to just film people recording events without intervention. This was the claim. My idea is that they managed, partly because of the requirements of this claim, which was impossible to fulfill, because of course you have a film crew in somebody's car, as you will see in this scene. It's impossible that doesn't affect the situation. I mean, just imagine yourself in the car and there's a film crew in the car with you. But let's just see this short 3-minute sequence that's about a guy called Brennan, who's a door-to-door salesman of something quite peculiar, which was luxury editions of the Bible. And he and 3 others would go from town to town, neighborhood to neighborhood, ringing doorbells and trying to sell this this Bible, this set of books. Actually, the problem is that Brennan is having some trouble. He's losing faith in his capacity to sell the Bible. So a Bible seller who loses faith is in a bit of a dire strait. And at this stage of the film, this is about midway through, let us see how the filmmakers have managed to try to convey the inner state of Brennan. So let's see. I'll turn it off. I know everything. I've tried, practiced all morning. No, I didn't. Okay, here goes. Oh, the sound. See, I knew something I hadn't practiced properly. Sorry.
To the right. City Hall. Damn it all. God damn. 118. 118. 118th Street. How does that go into a terrace? 118th Terrace, that isn't what I want. Where the hell is 118th Street? Jesus Christ. Boy, this...
So that's... So as you see, this guy is in a crisis. How do you see the crisis in this little scene? This is a real question, no? Yes.
He appears to be lost.
Right.
But he's about to sell Bible to in a neighborhood that seems Muslim, right?
Right. It's probably not Muslim, but it's kind of funny names. Yes.
He's trapped. He's in a labyrinth. He can't escape from. He's in like a corn maze.
Yeah. Anything else?
He laughs nervously, which is something we usually do when we do how to act.
You mean like me now? Or? Yeah, good. Yes, actually, there's something in also in the fact. Of course, you maybe not having seen the whole film. This is really the first time that we're up so close. That's also there's an effect in this extreme close-up, and so even when he's turning around to back up, his face muscles stretch, and it seems to add tension. And I mean, the nervousness might even be the fact that there's a camera there, and the fact that he's talking to himself also is I would think is a sign of he's losing it. But it also is related to the fact that there is a camera there, so he has to kind of perform in a way. And of course, as you said, it's not. I don't think it's a Muslim neighborhood. It's some kind of theme neighborhood from the 1960s. But it's funny, of course. He turns on the radio, and it's "This land is my land." I really have serious doubts whether that was actually playing on the radio right then and there, but.
That version, that up-tempo, almost unrecognizable.
Yeah, maybe it was, but of course this land is my land, and it's he's in some kind of Arab dream world or nightmare world perhaps, and then he's looking for 114th Street, and there's no numbers whatsoever. So I mean, there's a whole series of little details that convey the inner feelings, or rather, I mean, the filmmakers have accompanied Brennan and the three other guys, but focusing always on Brennan for quite a while, and so they know what's going on in a way, and so what they're doing here, they're creating somewhat artificially. I mean, I'm sure they would scout every neighborhood that the guys were supposed to go. It's no surprise. And they chose this place, I'm sure. We must film there, and we'll do it in close-up. These are all decisions that express what they probably considered was the mental state of Brennan at that point, and how to convey it without Brennan actually saying, gee, because they outlawed interviews in these films. They didn't allow themselves to interview the characters. But I'm sure they would talk to them, of course, off camera. And so they didn't have the option of having an interview with Brennan, explaining his problems. So this, I think, was actually very creative. If we don't pay so much attention to non-interventionist ideal behind this documentary school, which, as I said, really dominated world documentary for the last 40 years, I think. Now it's over the last 20 years, maybe it's also come under crisis. And they also, a lot of these films had the same structure, which was the crisis structure. Somebody in a moment who's trying to do something but is having great difficulties, and is, I mean, there's other films which, for instance, there's a famous, what was it called? Robert Kennedy, I think it's called Crisis, actually, where Robert Kennedy is governor of, I don't remember which state, and he has to deal with an issue of a black girl who has to go to a school, and and the neighbors won't let her go there, and so it's a big crisis, and so how he reacts in this crisis. And here again, Brennan is in a crisis. So then, of course, there's the hidden agenda. In a way, I mean, the idea of this whole film is a critique, very 60s, very much of its time, of the American way of life and the ideals of making it and making money, and you go up from the low to the top of the. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of there's a congress of Bible salesmen, believe it or not, and they're all saying, next year I'm going to make $35,000 and I'm going to buy a house, and so there's that hidden agenda also, which is conveyed in the description of everyday life. So all we see is just the regular activities of these four guys, but as I tried to show in this scene, I think it's quite clear that there's something else going on. I don't know if anybody has any question, or feel free to speak up. So quickly, I would like to show another way of getting at intimacy. Is this is a film by perhaps the most important Latin American documentary filmmaker, Patricio Guzmán. He's from Chile. He made quite a famous film, famous for a documentary, called La Batalla de Chile, the Battle of Chile, in the late 1977, I think. This was after the 1973 coup, the military coup that ousted Salvador Allende, the first socialist president of Chile and possibly South America. And many years later, Patricio Guzmán was exiled, and he finished that film, The Battle of Chile, which is an epic film which you should really try and see, because it's fantastic. It's a kind of chronicle of the last year of Allende's government and how different sectors plotted his downfall. But it's told, it's really thrilling, because you see it in like minute by minute, as it were, as though it were happening today. It has that immediacy. Guzmán went into exile. Then he managed to come back many years later when the military dictatorship was over. But he found that Chile, for instance, this film was never shown in Chile until a few years ago. Really, it was like not exactly banned, but no distributors were interested. It was like something that people didn't want to see. And after he actually made a film upon his return called the Chile, la memoria obstinada, Chile, obstinate memory, which is also a fine film. And then he made this film, which tries to be a kind of film biography of Salvador Allende, but in a way it's also a generational autobiography of his own generation, Patricio Guzman, and the people that were involved in that movement. And so look at this, the first few minutes, just to see how Guzman deals with trying to get at the intimacy of this historical figure, president, no less.
Esto es casi todo lo que queda de Salvador Allende, presidente de Chile en 1970. El 11 de septiembre de 1973 fue derrocado por un golpe militar. En su cuerpo sin vida se encontraron estos objetos, historia desperdigada. La dictadura de Pinochet aplastó la democracia, aquella que durante 2 siglos se había perfeccionado y destruyó día a día, durante 18 años, el país que yo conocía. Miles de chilenos fueron asesinados y torturados, y cientos de miles salieron al exilio. Rastreando en museos y archivos, hoy solo este fragmento es visible al público. La aparición del recuerdo no es cómoda ni voluntaria, sacude siempre. Salvador Allende marcó mi vida. No sería el que soy si él no hubiera encarnado aquella utopía de un mundo más justo y más libre que recorría mi país en esos tiempos. Yo estaba allí, actor y cineasta. El pasado no pasa, vibra y se mueve con las vueltas de mi propia vida. Aquí estoy, en el mismo lugar que hace 30 años me dijo adiós, un simple muro cerca del aeropuerto. Detenido en el Estadio Nacional, sometido a la máquina de olvido que se ponía en marcha, un solo deseo me animaba: salvar los rollos de la batalla de Chile que contenían la prueba de ese sueño despierto que vivimos con Allende. Salí al exterior con esas bobinas y cuando terminé la película, entré al exilio. Hoy regreso y al empezar este nuevo viaje, encuentro al hombre que pintó los muros y que escribió el nombre de Salvador Allende en todas las calles de Chile.
Los muros tenían y eran del pueblo. En Chile, ¿de quiénes son los medios de comunicación? Son de la derecha. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que decía? Que la calle, para nosotros, son como los titulares de los diarios. Y durante la campaña de gobierno de la Unión Popular se le dio mucho auge. O sea, fue el conquistar la calle para Allende. en el sentido en que todos los muros de Chile tenían que estar rayados con Allende, o sea, todo. Este es el logo de la época de la campaña de Allende. Vota por Allende. Se adquirió una fuerza en la calle y un método de trabajo, y de ahí surgieron lo que llamaban las brigadas Ramona Parra, o las brigadas, digamos, moralistas, o las brigadas callejeras.
Durante la dictadura, el Mono González siguió pintando con el mismo equipo que él formó hace 30 años. El Mono se negó a salir del país, vivió la represión y la transición política. Nunca olvidó nada, ningún detalle de los tiempos de Allende. Como él, hay mucha gente que no olvidó nada.
Esto estuvo mucho tiempo mal guardado.
El Mono guarda con delicadeza los dibujos del famoso pintor Roberto Mata, con el que hizo muchos murales para la Unidad Popular.
Se prácticamente va a restaurar esto.
El poder cultiva el olvido, pero tras la capa de amnesia que cubre el país, el recuerdo emerge, las memorias vibran a flor de piel.
So here, what's going on? If help me to recall what are the objects that the camera focuses on at the beginning. Sorry?
Well, the object, the silent witnesses.
Yeah. What are these objects? A wallet? Yeah. I don't know if you've noticed that there's a check.
Yeah, 2 checks.
2 checks en blanco, no sé.
Blank check.
Blank checks.
The party
Socialist Party, and there's a watch. And then of course there's this broken glasses. Actually, there's a couple of years ago, a Chilean artist made a gigantic like sculpture out of those glasses that was placed in the Plaza de la Moneda in front of the government house in Chile. So here I think through these ruins, in a way, or these little, what's left that seems nothing, I think we can imagine an individual, the president of Chile, Salvador Allende, and of course each one of these objects is at the same time, or we can't help but read the items in a sort of symbolic way. So, you know, I don't know, the check that's not been filled is like a promise of something. Time has stopped. The watch, the loyalty of the Socialist Party. I don't know. I mean, every item. I think this is something that happens inevitably in the documentary. Is that everything is itself very particular, specific, you know, thing that is being recorded by this almost scientific apparatus of cameras and microphones. But at the same time, there's a tendency in introducing that into some kind of story to make each of these things symbolic or representative of something. There's even a danger in this tendency of the documentary to make everything representative, because, for instance, there's a very strong pull in the documentary tradition to erase the individuality of any individual that's on camera, and very quickly that person, that individual, becomes a representative of a category. I mean, you know, the Eskimo, the worker, the Indian, the Chinaman, and of course you can immediately understand the danger of this kind of categorization. People lose their individuality, and the difference between two Eskimos is no longer important. An Eskimo becomes just a kind of stand-in for that category, Eskimos. And of course this tends to happen, and there's a long history in the documentary, and especially so in Latin America, of always filming the other being someone completely different from the filmmaker, or even presumably the audience. So it's, you know, it's not going to be a theater full of Eskimos watching Nanook. This is the idea. Well, that would be fun. So I think that there's that pull towards symbolism or representative, which is inevitable, but I think most sensitive filmmakers will be aware of trying to come and go between this symbolic pull and reasserting the specific individuality of one person's experience. And it's often through intimacy that we find that. And then I just let the movie play a little bit, because there's these two scenes where Patricio Guzman, the filmmaker, in a way is telling his own story through Allende. And in a way, it's his own intimate experience which prevails rather than that of Allende, but it takes on also a wider meaning as a generational experience and a political experience. So, you know, we see his hand with its stone, or first his fingers trying to scrape away the paint that's been like covering up. We don't know what's being covered up actually, but in a way we understand symbolically that what's being covered up are the, you know, graffiti or mural paintings that this guy El Mono is going to be talking about in the next shot. In a way, what's being covered up in Chile is a whole history of what happened, the socialist government and the military coup and the repression and the killings. That's being, let's forget about that. Let's paint it all over in white. And I think there's something about the gesture that's interesting, and with the stone, and even it seems like he's holding the camera with one hand, and then with the other he's trying to. Actually, I know that it was his daughter who was holding the camera, but anyway, it's the impression is that he's like alone doing this. And then when El Mono opens up this kind of role with the original designs by Roberto Mata, it really, I mean, it seems like it's the what is it, the Dead Sea Scrolls, or something completely ancient from another era that is completely forgotten. So there's also, you have this feeling that we're talking about something that has been deliberately forgotten and buried very, very deep, as though it belonged to another era. And the task of the filmmaker and the film that ensues will be to get at that experience, that forgotten experience, through his own experience, and how that, his own Patricio Guzman's experience, is echoed in the other people that he will meet during the film, always talking about something else, which is Salvador Allende, and how they related to Salvador Allende. So this often happens in documentary, that there's always often a displacement. It's easier to talk about your experience, talking about, or it's perhaps more easily conveyable if you talk about something else, somebody else. Okay, so we have to hurry a little bit. Now, this is, should I show this or not? Yeah. So this is going to be a little longer clip, about 12 minutes, I think, from a very famous film that very few people have seen, which is Shoah. This is a film by Claude Lanzmann, released in 1985, and it's an 8.5-hour film about death in the concentration camps during the Second World War. So you can understand why not many people have seen it. But it's probably, I would say, one of the greatest documentaries ever made, and probably one of the greatest films ever made. So if one day you have 8.5 hours to spare and some courage, because it's quite powerful, I would recommend that you see it, because it's really one of the major cinematic experiences of the history of film, seriously. So here again, I just want to show this. It's a rather extended sequence, but it's just to show, I think, one point that's important. So this is a series of meetings Lanzmann had with survivors of concentration camps. In this case, it's a guy called Abraham Bomba, who was a barber, and who he will tell his story now. And for the interview, Lanzmann asked Bomba, who was living at the time, I think, in Tel Aviv. He'd lived in the United States after the war for a long time, to tell the story in a barber shop, so that to somehow recreate his own past. So let's just see.
Can you tell me, how did it happen? How were you chosen?
There came an order from the Germans to take out the barbers they could get, and they need them for a certain job. What kind of job they needed for it, we didn't know at that time. But we gathered together as many barbers as we could.
How long did it happen after you arrived in Treblinka?
So that, I would say that would happen about 4 weeks after I was in Treblinka.
When was it? It was in the morning?
That was in the morning. That was around 10 o'clock when a transport came to Treblinka, and the woman went into the gas chambers. And they chose some people from the working people over there, and they asked questions who was a barber, who was not a barber. I was a barber for quite a number of years. And some of them, they knew me, like from people from Czechoslovakia and from other places. So naturally, they chose me, and I selected some more barbers, which I know of them, and we got it together.
Professional barbers?
Officially, yes. We got it together. We're waiting for for the order. And the order came to go with them, with the Germans. They took us in to the gas chamber, to the second part of the camp in Treblinka.
It was far from the first part?
It was not too far, but it was all covered with gates, barbed wires, and trees covering the gate. That nobody should see there is a gate or there is a place going in to the gas chamber.
Is it what the Germans called the Schlauch?
No, the Germans, what they call like going to road to the heaven.
Himmelweg.
Himmelweg, yeah, the road to the heaven. And we know about it because we worked for quite a time before we went in to work in the gas chamber. Going in over there, they put in some benches where the women could sit and not to have the idea that this is the last way or that is the last time they're going to live or they're going to breathe or they're going to know what is going on.
How long did it last that the barbers cut the hair inside the gas chamber? Because it was not always the case.
We worked inside the gas chamber for about a week or 10 days. After that, they decided that we will cut the hair in the undressing barrack.
How did it look, the gas chamber?
It was a room, not a big room. The room was, I would say, the size by feet, around 12 by 12. But in that room, they pushed in a lot of women, almost one on top of the other one. But like I mentioned before, when we came in, we didn't know that what we're gonna do. And then one of the couples, they came in, he said, barbers, you have to do a job to make to believe all those women that came in that they're just taking a haircut and going in to take a shower, and from there they go out from this place. But we know already that there is no way going out from this room, because this room is the last place where they went in alive and they will never go out alive again.
Can you describe precisely?
Precisely to describe is when the transport came in, waiting there until the transport came in. The transport came in, women with children pushing in to that place. We, the barbers, started to cut the hair, and some of them, I would say all of them, some of them, they knew already what's going to happen to them. We tried to do the best what we could.
No.
The most human being what we could.
Excuse me, how did it happen? When the woman came into the gas chamber, were you yourself already in the gas chamber, or did you came afterwards?
I said we were already in the gas chamber because we were waiting over there for the transport to come in.
You were inside?
Inside, yes, inside the gas chamber. We were already in.
And suddenly you saw the women coming?
Yes, they came in.
How were they?
They were undressed, all naked, without clothes, without anything else.
All of them completely naked?
Completely naked. All the women and all the children.
And the children too?
The children too, because they came from the undressing barracks. There was barracks before going into the gas chamber where they had undressed themselves.
What did you feel the first time that it happened, that you saw all these naked women coming?
What I felt that accordingly, I got to do what they told me, to cut the hair in a way that it should look like a barber is doing this job, like he's doing a job for a woman, a nice haircut to give them. Both to take off as much hair as we could, because they needed the woman's hair to be transported to Germany.
This means that you didn't shave them?
No, we did not shave. We just cut the hair, make them believe that they're getting a nice haircut.
But you cut with what? With scissors?
With scissors, yes. With scissors and with comb, without any clippers. Just like a men's haircut, I would say. Not a body one to take out, to take off all the hair, but just to have the imagination that they're getting a nice haircut.
There were no mirrors, no?
No, there were no mirrors, there were just benches, not chairs, but just benches, where we worked about 16, 17 barbers, and we had a lot of women in. Every haircut, it took about 2 minutes, no more than that, because there was a lot of women to come in and to get rid of the hair.
Can you imitate? Now, how did you do?
Well, how we did? We did as fast as we could, because we were quite a number of professional barbers. And the way we did, we just stopped this and this, and we cut, and we just cut this like this, here and there and there, and this side, and the head was all finished.
With big movements?
With big, naturally, with big movement, because we could not waste any time. The other party was waiting already outside, coming in to do the same thing, the same job, the same procedure.
You said that you were 16 barbers.
Yes.
About. This means you cut the hair of how many women in one batch?
In one patch, there was about, I would say, going into that place, between 60 and 70 women in the same room at one time.
And afterwards, the doors of the gas chamber?
After that, we were finished. With this party, another party came in, and it was around about 140, 150 women. They all were already taken care of. They told us to leave the gas chamber for a few minutes, about 5 minutes, where they put in the gas and they chucked into that.
Where did you wait?
Outside the gas chamber. And on the other side, where on this side the woman went in, and the other side was a group working people, which they took out already the dead bodies. Some of them, they were not exactly dead. They took him out, and in 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, in 1 minute everything was clear. And it was clean to take in the other party of the other woman to go through the same thing what the first one they went through.
And these women, they had long hair?
And most of them, they had long hair, they had short hair, but we had to do the job to get rid of the hair. Like I mentioned that, the Germans, they needed the hair for their purposes.
But I have asked you and you did answer, what was your impression the first time you saw arriving this naked woman with children? What did you feel?
I tell you something, to have a feeling over there, it was very hard to feel anything but to have a feeling. Because working there day and night between the people, between their bodies, men and women, your feeling disappeared. You were dead with your feeling. You had no feeling at all. As a matter of fact, I want to tell you something what happened. At the gas chamber, when I was chosen in over there to work as a barber, some of women that came in from a transport from my town, from Częstochowa. And from the women, from the number of women, I know a lot of people.
You knew them?
I know them. I live with them in my town. I live with them in my street. And some of them, they were my close friends. And when they saw me, all of them started hugging me. Hey, this and that, what are you doing here? What's going to happen with us? What could you tell them? What could you tell? A friend of mine, he worked as a barber. He was also a good barber in my hometown. When his wife and his sister came into the guest chamber,
You have two.
Still have it.
Please. We have to do it, you know.
I won't be able to do it.
You have to do it. I know it's very hard. I know and I apologize.
Don't keep me along with that, please.
Please, let's go.
I told you today it's going to be very hard. Taking in with bags. And it was transported to the назовем партию месяца за ним. Diese Sache auf die Louis, auf die Sonne in Deutschland durch. Okay, go ahead.
That will be the answer when his wife or the sister came.
They tried to talk to him and the husband, also from his sister. They could not tell them that is the last time they stay alive, because behind them was the German Nazis, the SS men. And they knew the minute they will say a word, not only the wife and the woman, which they are dead already, but also they will share the same path with them. but in a way, they try to do the best for them, to stay with them a second longer, a minute longer, just to hug them and just to kiss them, because they know that we'll never see them again.
Hard to go on. So this was a rather powerful moment. Is really what I wanted to show is how the intimacy works. Also in a political sense. In this case, I think on the one hand we have Landsman asking what he calls the small questions. Very detailed, very insistent on certain details, exactly at what time was it when you came in, and were you inside, or were you when they came in, and how many, and how long did the haircut last, and all these small details, and insistent and explaining in extremely concrete way, is a way of imagining another person's experience. And also, sometimes when you have people who maybe have a story to tell, sometimes they have already a way of telling it, that in a way they can disconnect from that story. And I think these details, these questions, that are sometimes on the verge of cruelty, but I think the object, again, is to, and I think that there's a pact, in a way, between the filmmaker and the witness, in this case, to tell the story, that it's important to tell the story. That doesn't prevent the Abraham Bomba from going through this rather difficult moment. So that's one way of imagining it. At the same time, Landsman, as I said at the beginning, has actually placed this former barber, who's no longer a barber, in a barber shop to somehow evoke the job that he was doing at the concentration camp. Of course, it's completely different, but the difference also helps to imagine. Like, there are no mirrors, here it's full of mirrors, here it's men, there it's women. Here it's taking quite a long time to cut the hair, and over there it's 2 minutes. So there's all these differences help us to imagine, curiously. But the great moment where we are in a way swallowed up by the story as spectators is this moment where Abe breaks down and just can't go on. Again, curiously enough, it's the story of this friend. It's not his story, it's his friend who saw his wife coming in. And that's where he can't tell that story. And again, a slight displacement happens and allows his real feelings to come out. Also, his whole expression during most of the talk is kind of almost stone-faced, and at that point he changes completely. His tone of voice turns from the more declamatory to something more intimate. And in fact, at one point he sort of almost whispers something, I think in Yiddish. It's actually about the hair and how they took it to Germany. And so it's something that where Landsman calls this, his objective is the resurrection of the past. Somehow the past becomes alive, and becomes alive in what way? This intimate experience of the past. And I think I think that silence goes on for about 1 minute and 20 seconds, which doesn't seem that long, but well, you just saw it, and it seemed like an hour. You know? And I think that moment is the moment where two almost contradictory things happen, in my opinion, is that we can almost imagine this unimaginable experience of being there. I think the fact that he can't, you know, we sort of want to help him, and helping him, we start imagining what it might have been like. And at the same time, because he's not climbing up and refusing to go on, unable to go on, we are also aware of the impossibility of actually conveying such an extreme experience. But in a way, almost any experience is impossible to convey in absolute terms. So I think there's a lot of things that are going on in this scene. I don't know if there's any questions or observations. I'm trying to go quickly. I think we can finish with show a short clip from one of my films, and then we have a few minutes for questions. We're running a little late. Okay, this is from my own film, Fotografías, photographs, which some of you may have seen. It's a story of my, in a way, search for my mother's story. My mother was born in India, and I never really knew much about her background in India. She didn't convey very much at all about her culture and background, living in Argentina. Anyway, the story of the film is rather complex, but there's I'm looking for certain questions, answers to questions. So this is my mother here, actually. Maybe about 5 minutes or so.
Igual no puedo dejar de pensar que es de esta familia que mamá quiso escapar.
That's me.
So this picture was taken about, I don't know, that trip must have been 68 or 69. And quite a good picture, don't you think? And your trip was, I think, the foundation. All kept clicking, everything that was in sight, and a lot of frames. You were there.
This is my cousin, by the way. Oh.
And of course, his white cousins. The heroes, white cousins, the heroes. I think it's incredible that you've come, so happy all of us that you're here with us, that you've made that great effort of having come, and that effort of having linked us all together again. You know, it's incredible, and the credit goes to you for making that effort. And I thank God for it. And it's made us keep Kamalata alive. You know, she's among us now more than ever before, through you.
எடுத்து இவ்வளோ தூரம் தூண்டி விட்டதே இவங்க தான். ஸோ இதில் வந்து இந்த எண்ணம் அதாவது வந்து இந்த எதிர்பார்த்ததை விட அதிகமான ஒரு இதில் போகும். ஸோ அதை வந்து நான் வேறு எதுவும் சொல்ல வர முடியாது. நீ வந்து உங்களுடைய அண்ணனுக்கு நீ உதவி செய்வேன்னு நான் நினைக்கிறேன். அதே நேரத்தில் உதவி செய்யவும் வேணும் அப்படின்றாங்க. அது சொல்லியிருக்கேன்.
This is the whole concept of this movie was initiated by me. I am instrumental in you making this film and coming to India.
So what is it I have to do now?
He actually presumes you're going to be staying in India.
No, I have to leave.
I know. Yeah.
ஆர்டர் என்னன்னா நீனாவே நேரடியாக தெரிஞ்சு அதனுடைய இன்பத்தை நீனாவே தான் அந்த எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸை கிடைக்குங்கிறது தான் உண்மையாக மற்றவங்க ஒன்று தூண்டணும். அம்மா தூண்டாம நேரடியாகவே நீ அனுபவிக்கிறதுக்காக சான்ஸ் கொடுத்துருக்கோம்.
Your mother's life was so complex that she herself took a lifetime to understand her background and her culture and her association with her own motherland and to the land that she belonged when she died. Now God has given you that opportunity through it, whether you think it as your mother or anything else, God has given you that opportunity to be exposed to this. It was too complex for your mother to even help you explain this because it was so complex for her, for herself.
So you think she was there?
I think so.
felicidad de mamá. Una vez, yo tendría 7 años, el auto se quedó sin nafta y recuerdo que bajamos por una pendiente con el motor apagado, simplemente llevados por la inercia. A lo mejor esa imagen sea la imagen de lo que ella aspiraba, su deseo de sacarse de encima el peso insoportable de la identidad, la familia, la nacionalidad, la sangre, la raza. Solo pensarlo me da una extraña emoción.
We can have maybe just a few minutes for questions and answers. I know some of you have classes after these. If you need to leave, I guess we will stay till 230, 230, I'm sorry.
Yes?
So the image that is your mother or is supposed to be your mother, is that a real image? Is that your mother, or did you get an actress to do that?
No, it's an actress. I mean, there's a real Super 8 image of my mother at the beginning of the clip I showed. He's laughing. And then it's an actress that is actually introduced at the beginning of the film as an actress, and I show her pictures of my mother.
So how did you feel about inserting an actress in the place of your mother? I mean, was that an easy decision, or was that a difficult decision, or what was the cost of doing that?
Yeah, I don't know if it was easy or difficult, but I mean, it was a decision. I think most decisions in a film are difficult because some are perhaps, I mean, if we are working within the documentary genre, some are perhaps seem like bigger decisions than others. But you know, whether to leave out, I mean, characters that you've shot, you leave them out completely, and even this character played by the actress, there's much less in the film than I actually shot. I shot many more scenes, but I mean, the whole film is also a little bit of a recreation of the past. I showed this clip because, in a way, and I think in this I'm representative of quite a few filmmakers working within the documentary in Latin America, that we have this kind of attitude of not believing totally anybody who's saying something claiming to be the truth. I mean, this is probably a cultural thing in Latin America. It's not just the president or somebody on the news, but even the kind of the bedrock of Latin American documentary, and possibly international documentary, which is the tradition of the testimonio, the eyewitness account. So here it's like, you know, who is speaking? Now that's a little bit of what's happening here. Is it my mother speaking? Is it well, maybe the medium who is speaking in Tamil, a language I don't understand? Or is it Gautam, my cousin, who is translating into English, possibly what the medium said, that my mother said? And at the end, you know, I asked Gautam, was she there? And he says, I think so. And so he, I don't know, I think he really believed, and I don't know what I believed, and I think that's also a question for the audience, which is rather maybe troubling, is to, you know, not only who's speaking, but what does the filmmaker believe? This is a question that's not often on the agenda of a documentary, to provoke the audience to ask themselves what the filmmaker believes. So that's a little bit the object of this. So partly having an actress is part of setting up that question. Yes?
What is the point? I assume it was intentional. Those blanks at the beginning, white spaces,
Yeah.
black spaces.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's something along that's repeated along the film in a way to separate chapters in some way, but sometimes it doesn't fulfill that function, but it's rather, in a way, I don't know, I felt it was necessary to somehow evoke the gaps, the fact that these are just shards, fragments of something that I was able to, but a lot of it remains in the dark. And I didn't really get the answers I went to look for, in a way, although maybe I got other answers. I think it's something that happens often in any kind of documentary investigation, is you have a set of questions and you're looking for certain answers, but once you start walking along the way of that investigation, you come up with different answers, and you realize that maybe your original questions weren't relevant.
So, but you use that mechanism throughout the film.
Yeah.
The difference between the white and the dark scene?
No, the white is just, that was just one moment where it's a Super 8 screening where it ends. And I just slowed it down, and it's a table, maybe of course out of context, where we've seen a kind of family scene, and now it's empty. And the reel runs out and it just goes to white, because when you're projecting a Super 8 on a screen, once it finishes it goes to white. That's all. Disappears in a way, more than black. Black, somehow you imagine there's something there, whereas white there's nothing. It's the nothing, the cinema is white rather than black.
A question.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for ending with this beautiful clip from your film.
Oh, thank
I'd
you.
like to go back to a question on the last one, which is incredibly painful to watch. I've seen the whole film. I had it at the Institute years and years ago. What do you think about the criticisms that, or what do you think, let me not begin there. What do you think about the way that Lanzmann pushes as he's getting so distressed to keep going when, well, I'll tell you how I felt if you like, but I mean, what do you what do you feel about it?
I personally understand Lanzmann, because in a way I identify in his role of trying to get this all-important account. Actually, in the end, the conclusion after the silence is not that momentous or that relevant, but I think that silence and the questions that, you know, the pushing that goes unanswered for a while, I think that creates, to me, one of the most unforgettable moments in cinema. And it's really the moment, as I said before, where you kind of imagine, and I think Lanzmann's questions help us to feel ourselves the violence of having to remember that. But at the same time, this kind of political duty to remember. And I mean, I've done documentaries also about other kinds of traumatic situations in Argentina, and it's sometimes really hard, you know. And it's important that the accounts, the eyewitness accounts or the personal accounts, be alive for the audience, and not just somebody playing a record. So I think that's how it works, and I understand that some people might be disturbed by that, but
yeah, well, it's very painful to feel that he has to go on. So you sort of say, let him go, let him off the hook. But I totally take your point.
Yeah.
You
I think it would have been easier for Lanzmann to just get him off the hook. I mean, but I think he wouldn't have been. I mean, sometimes it's just kind of easy to think that if a filmmaker is nice to the people he is interviewing, then he's a good filmmaker. And I think it's often the other way around.
No, I'm very convinced by how you explained that. Thank you very much.
Because we have time for a very last question. Katie?
English. The selection of text was fascinating as a meditation on the document, right? The status of the document. I mean, those objects in the Guzman film. I mean, the power of objects to give us a sense that, you know, we can touch and the kind of they're presented unmediated, really, even though of course in the film they are. Then you have Lanzmann's absolute refusal to work with, you know, the documents we've seen. I mean, documentaries, the refusal to represent, right, the Holocaust or re-represent the Holocaust. Then in your film, I mean, I think you really sort of, it's a summum of all kinds of approaches to the document and interrogating the document. So earlier in the film, you have the objects, you have the trunk with you know, the elephant and the puppets and the things like that. But then you, for example, in the Super 8 movies, when you also reproduce the sound of the projector, and the photographs and the yellow photographs with the sort of, you know, traces of time on them, you emphasize the mediatedness of those documents. So I just wondered, you know, what would like to hear you talk a little bit about how you see the status of those of documents and you know in.
Well, as you said, I think very correctly. I think for me it's important that the documents are seen as such, and not a full screen picture. You know, as you have the feeling that maybe you're seeing whatever that picture was of. You know, a tree or Auschwitz. But so for me, the documents are always objects, and there's also something. Recently, one of these Italian critics was asking me about the role of objects in my film, and he was saying that there's something that I thought was maybe partly true, is that there seems to be like a magical, like he was saying like they're like magical helpers or aids, magical aids, the photographs, the puppets. And I think there's something interesting, like a talisman, you know, something that has a magic function. I believe very much in that, and I think it's linked to this, what I was discussing before about this thing that film does, and documentary film especially, because it's always about real things, that makes those real things symbols. And these symbols work in a kind of magic way in the consciousness of the viewer also. So I think there's something in the photographs, the objects.
But don't the photographs and the Super 8 kind of work against that? Because you insist on showing us kind of that they didn't come out of nowhere, you know.
No, they came out of a trunk, or I mean, they're objects, and you're never seeing the reality. Yeah. So I mean, I think there's something about objects, and even Lanzmann, you know, is doing this. When the fact that he's putting Abe in a barber shop, and the scissors, and the silence with the sound of the scissors, and I mean, I think that is evoking, using, you know, the language of cinema, and this kind of magic dimension that an object in a film is no longer an object. It becomes something else, and that's very strange. So I don't know. I'm answering rather quickly, but that's more or less one very
We'll take one short, brief question by Lena.
I was just quickly interested in this object conversation, because we were reading in class Gerard Wachman's book. I don't know if it's a French psychoanalyst philosopher that wrote a book. The name of the book is The Object of the Century, and for him, Lanzmann's movie is the object of the century.
All right.
Yeah, and it's this whole book about why is it. I mean, about what that movie is an object, and I mean, it's a reflection on memory for him. The movie itself, the way it evokes memory, makes it the object of the whole century. That after talking about ruins and a lot of other possible objects for the century. We can talk about that later on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, but Lanzmann is also always evoking, you know, this detail, small questions, always objects, size of a room, comparing the place where we're speaking to the, you know, the barber shop, to the crematorium or whatever, the gas chamber.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience.